Okay, hello everybody. Welcome to today's event. Thank you very, very much for joining me. I hope you can hear me. Perhaps you could do me a big favor and type in to the question area. Give me a thumbs up or tell me if the sound's coming through okay. It should be, but it's always good to do a little check on these things. And just whilst I'm waiting for that. So yes, today's event is negotiating with a narcissistic ex. So this is quite a specific presentation today. And the reason this event was put together was because of some recent communications that Dell's been having with clients. And this is a subject that's been coming up, and maybe they've used slightly different language, but many times recently. So Dell actually said that we need to do something here. So today's presentation together. So thanks Adele for advancing the slides. So this is me, I'm Simon. I'm actually the business manager here at Naked.Recovery. So I'm not in control, or I don't actually deliver the content as such. I help run the business. So today I'll be basically introducing Adele and handing over the presentation to her for the content. And then during the rest of the presentation, I'll actually be monitoring the chat feed. So if you do have any questions, then do ping those through. As I say, we've had a number of good questions come through already, and I'm trying to make a note of all of those, and we will attempt to address all of those questions during today's presentation. Okay, so let's just have a little look at the itinerary today. So what is narcissism? How do I tell if my ex has a narcissist traits? That's the first area we're going to be looking at. Negotiation. Learn how to negotiate with a partner or ex who exhibits narcissistic tendencies. Thrive into the future. Learn how to divorce or co-parent with a narcissistic ex. And that could be, co-parenting is a challenging situation at the best of times. If you have what you perceive to be a narcissistic ex, that's just going to make the situation even more difficult. And to negotiate during those times can be fraught with difficulty, and yeah, it's a really difficult situation to handle. There isn't a magic wand, but there was some good techniques and approaches we'll be looking at a little bit later. Then taking action. At the end of the day, we can give you as much kind of education, but unless you actually take some action with it, actually there's not going to be any benefit. So we will actually give you an opportunity to take some action today. And we also have a prize today, which is great. So we actually be doing giving out a prize to one lucky winner later on today's presentation. You will need to stay till a little bit later before we give that prize away. So you have a really good opportunity to win a very, well, I'll briefly outline what it is. That's actually going to be some private one-to-one coaching. I think it's an hour's one-to-one call with Adele. So you actually have the opportunity to win that today, and get to learn really from one of the best coaches there is in a sort of divorce and marriage space. And the last element, we're looking at the Q&A. So we'll be, as I say, attempting to answer all your questions. And we've already had some really good questions come through, and these are challenging questions. They're not easy questions to answer, but we will do our best. Okay, we do actually also have a free download today. You should have found that on your kind of login page. If you've had any difficulty downloading that, then let us know, and we can make sure you've got that into your hands. Dale will come online shortly, and she'll correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think we're actually going to be dealing with that healing goal specifically during today's presentation. I'm sure Dale will correct me if that's incorrect, but it is a really valuable tool, actually. In fact, we'll talk a little bit later about that and how you can use that in the presentation. Okay, so at this point, I'm going to actually hand over to Adele. Adele, are you there?
Yes. Hello. Can you hear me okay? Okay, can you hear me?
Okay, so I can hear you now loud and clear.
Okay, fantastic. Good. So welcome everybody to today's event. Narcissism, borderline personality disorder, dealing with any kind of ex who has a volatile character or personality. It's very, very difficult. and a very challenging topic. And that's why we put together this specific event to tackle some of those issues and just talk a little bit about how to, navigate a divorce when you're working with somebody like that. So thank you for joining today. As Simon said, he will be monitoring the chat area. So you'll have an opportunity during today's event to, take some notes, ask some questions, get your specific questions answered, and also do some work. So during the course of the presentation, make sure you have that notepad and pen, because I'm going to stop things and say, right, you need to take 3 minutes and kind of go through an exercise and see if you can identify with some of the things that we're speaking about, or if there's some things that actions you can already begin to take that are going to make a difference to you in your life. But just to acknowledge everyone that's joined today, just taking action when you know that you're stuck in something, that's a massive move forward. So I really acknowledge you for joining today. Okay, so first things first, let's try and diagnose a narcissistic ex, someone who has a problem. So many of you might have Googled what narcissism is and, just sort of felt, oh, this person I'm dealing with is just so difficult. They must be a narcissist. They must be something. Now, sometimes these things can, get muddied. Sometimes someone you're dealing with who's really difficult does have narcissistic personality disorder. Sometimes they have borderline personality disorder. Sometimes they're just not a great person. And there's different categories of this, but we're finding in today's society that people who display narcissistic traits are just everywhere. And people who are going through divorce are often, the difficult divorces are people who are dealing with exes who display complex and volatile personality disorders. So let's take a look at these traits, at these red flags. So keep your ex in your mind. If you can identify with some of these, make sure you say yes in the chat function so that we can kind of see, what kind of ex you're dealing with. So first things first, narcissists have tons of charisma. They are some of the most charismatic people in a room, in an event, in a party. They're the center of attention. Everything's happening where they are. So they have the power to influence large numbers of people, to make you feel really special, really unique, and just have a shining light behind them. So they have a lot of charisma, and this is very attractive. And I think if you are in a space where you might be beating yourself up for, how could I have ended up in a relationship with someone like this? Please don't be too tough on yourself, because these people are very charismatic. They pull you in. You're drawn to them like a moth to a flame. So it's very normal to want to be with somebody like this. Okay. Next thing is they almost always get their way. So again, if you're feeling bad that, I just feel like such a doormat, such a pushover, narcissists have a very strong sense of entitlement, and they almost always get their way in everything that they do. So they're very persuasive, they're very manipulative, they're very good at framing things in a way that, they're going to get their end goal realized. They're also masters of camouflage. They're complete chameleons. You will be surprised if you're sitting somewhere and you see your ex has got, maybe sitting next to a priest on the one side and a drug addict on the other side, and making everyone feel at home. They're often the people who can kind of change their personality to make others feel comfortable. Now, the tricky part for someone who has that personality disorder is it's very difficult for them to figure out who they are. They feel like chameleons. They feel changeable, movable. But the thing with the masters of camouflage and the narcissistic masters of camouflage is they're very good at morphing around and changing themselves, but it's for a goal. They have a goal in mind when they are being chameleons in this way. And they're very conflicted, because imagine if you're constantly changing who you are to, make other people feel comfortable, or to, fit in, or influence others. It's difficult for you to live like that, because you're not solid, you're not grounded. in yourself. So often narcissists that I've worked with, they say, I just don't know who I am. I've spun so many tales. I have so many lies that I've told. There's so many stories. I can't catch up with them. I don't know who I am anymore. So they're masters of this world, and they have a specific goal, and we'll discuss that in a minute. They're hypersensitive to criticism. They perceive enemies everywhere, even when there aren't any. And they seem to have very few close friendships. This is a classic key thing that unites all of them, is they don't really have a lot of friends. They might have a lot of people who fawn over them, or who are impressed by them, or amazed by them, but they don't have close friendships that they can maintain over a long period of time. And if they perceive criticism and enemies everywhere, it's quite exhausting being married to somebody like this, because it's, oh gosh, what drama now? What's happened now? Who do we hate today? What is the story today? What is the issue today? So it's a very rocky roller coaster situation, fraught with drama. They're also never responsible for their actions. So if you found yourself, in your relationship, just always feel like you're apologizing, 20 times a day, that's a strong indication that you are married to a narcissist. They're very good at making everything someone else's fault. They don't take responsibility. They don't kind of say, right, I know I was involved in that. I might have something to do with that. I'm sorry. The words "I'm sorry" are very difficult for a narcissist. And if they do apologize, it's very dramatic. They'll say things like, fine, it's all my fault. I'm the terrible person now. And it's very dramatic, and kind of now it's all about them feeling terrible. And then you have to jump in and make them feel better, because now they feel terrible. So you can never, they steal the emotional space out of a relationship. They're the only ones that are entitled to emotions. They're the only ones that can have emotions. And if they feel bad, that dominates the space, and that is the focus of everything. So if they say sorry, then, oh, I'm a terrible person, whatever. Now we almost jump in. We can't just have a moment of like feeling better because they're sorry. We now need to rush in and make them feel better because they're all emotional and upset in their state at the moment. So if you found that your narcissistic ex is, oh, it's all your fault, very, very normal. Now, ultimately, and this is a really critical point, you should write these words down, okay? When I was talking earlier about what is the goal of a narcissist, why are they masters of camouflage? Why do they do what they do? They have a very clear goal in mind, and their goal is they're always looking for attention, empathy, and adulation. Okay? Always these three things. In everything that is happening, they're fishing. They're fishing for attention. They want attention. It's all about me. Please give me attention. They're fishing for empathy. Please feel for me. Please, feel sorry for what I've been through. They have these dramas, and then you need to jump in and feel sorry for whatever's happened. And they're always looking for adulation. You're amazing. You're wonderful. You're incredible. And whoever's the best at delivering this are their people that they include in their inner circle. Okay? This motivation is the most important motivation you need to understand when you're dealing with someone who has narcissistic traits. And if you can kind of really identify with that, please, let us know in the chat box so we know we're on the right track. Now, you, as being the person that was in a relationship with them, you were selected by your ability to supply attention, empathy, and adulation to your ex. So narcissists choose people who are really good at supplying them with attention, empathy, and adulation. Now, it will be very difficult for you to believe that, because it's like, well, we were so in love in the beginning. Everything was so wonderful. It was the most love I've ever felt in my whole life ever. It was so big and deep and huge. Again, it's all part of the same complex piece of a narcissist. So you were chosen ultimately because the attention you gave them, the empathy they received from you, and you adoring them, adulating them, making them feel like they're, the center of everything, was superior to someone else or anyone else in their space at that time. That's why you were selected. And if you were successful, if you were the one who was successful and you were chosen, you literally feel like the chosen one. I mean, it's like you've never felt so connected. You've never felt so in touch with somebody. You've never felt so bonded, so at peace, so one with someone. I am the other half of this person, because they are very, very charismatic and very good at making you feel special and chosen. And if chosen, you are literally bombed with love and intensity. It is overwhelming kind of love and intensity that is coming your way. It is just like, in a sea of love and intensity. It's quite overpowering. You drown in their love. It feels wonderfully all-consuming. So the start of the relationship is just so intense and incredible, and you feel their focus is all on you. You're chosen, you're amazing, and the sex is incredible, and the love is incredible, and everything's incredible. It's a very intense feeling, and when they provide that intense feeling, you're hooked. So again, you need to forgive yourself, because they're very, very good at this. They're masters of this, the love potion that you kind of get pulled into. And if you think of the legend of the tale of Narcissus, he was very beautiful. In the Greek sort of myth, he was very beautiful, and he pulled people in, and people were attracted to him. And it was, it's all consuming, like the myth. But you need to remember and take a step back. I mean, as if you're now divorcing somebody like that, deep within yourself that the focus on you was not real. And you've got to really get that. The focus was always about your ability to supply that attention, empathy, and that adulation. And the only time a narcissist really pays attention is when they're studying their prey, their target, in order to mimic and read them, to strategize their method to gain that supply of attention, empathy, and adulation. And this is why they become chameleons. This is why they're so good at changing themselves all the time. They're kind of, mimicking, reading. That's how they can sit next to a priest and completely make the priest feel at home. And they can sit next to a drug addict and completely make that person feel at home. They're very good at morphing themselves, because they're trying to get the attention, empathy, and adulation. I keep repeating these words because not only are these words how they got you, these words are their weakness. And that is really critical in understanding how to negotiate with someone like this. Now, narcissists have two kinds of people in their life. They have fans who can deliver the attention, empathy, and adulation, and enemies or idiots. Okay, so you might have had, lots of dramas, lots of ups and downs, lots of fights. There's enemies everywhere. People who are persecuting them, dramas, issues, or idiots. People they just, because that person's just an idiot. They just, I don't really like them. I don't really get on with them. That person's not great. They say things like this because those are the kind of people who, they've wisened up to the narcissist. And maybe they're not delivering the kind of attention, empathy, and adulation that the narcissist feels they deserve. So they have to kind of minimize or undermine that person. So they give them a label. Okay, then maybe it's not enemy or idiot. Maybe it's, just that person is just stupid, or that person isn't very bright. They'll be quite cutting. They'll be quite nasty when describing people who cannot deliver the attention, empathy, and adulation they feel they deserve. And they try to get other people to gang up against those people as well. So they'll try and form a club where it's like, one club is everyone that can provide attention, empathy, and adulation for me. We're all awesome. We're in the same club. And because they're charismatic, they can influence and involve those people that we're all thinking this is amazing over here. And then we've got the others, those other people. They're just, I don't know, losers. They're not going to win. You know, they're dumb. They're idiots. Yeah, they're just not very bright. You know, they'll have labels for those kind of people. So narcissists don't have many friends. They don't have genuine connections, because everything is about people's ability to deliver that attention, empathy, and adulation. And if you're not in that camp, you're in the other camp. Without an audience, narcissists have no empathy. And the abuse begins with really subtle put downs. Okay, so if they don't have an audience, you know, there come a point like when you're beginning, you'll remember the beginning of your relationship where everything was so amazing, so intoxicating, and best love you've ever had, most intense, most wonderful, blah blah blah. And then suddenly you wake up one day and you're like, whoa, this person isn't actually that great. And there's a resistance within you where you're sort of feeling a friction, or I'm not really liking this. And in that moment, a little piece of you is no longer a fan. You're no longer delivering the attention, empathy, and adulation. Then you'll notice the narcissist just cuts off their attention towards you. Maybe they withdraw a little bit. Maybe they become abusive. Maybe they start saying really nasty things to you. And those really little subtle put downs just start creeping in. And again, just try and think of your situation. What were all the little phrases that just started to creep in? And really subtle, really little things that were just said that actually were quite hurtful, you know, quite hurtful, quite upsetting. And it was said with such little empathy from that person. It's like they didn't care. It's just, you know, just said with ease. Now, if you stop being a fan and you stop supplying attention, empathy, and adulation, this leads to narcissistic rage. Okay? So if you slowly start pulling back your attention, empathy, and adulation, you'll start getting the subtle put downs, the toxic little jabs from your ex. But if you actually just pull back totally, and you're like, you know, you start actually, you know, withdrawing, you withdraw completely. You're done. You're finished. They just full of rage, full of anger, full of rage. You can't even communicate with them. They're just exploding all the time. And, you know, the rage is unreasonable. It's over the top. Maybe some of you feel afraid. You're like, wow, this is totally out of sorts, out of the ordinary. It's just crazy. They're behaving crazy. That argument was just out of order. That level of emotion and rage is because you've stopped supplying the attention, empathy, and adulation. And as you move from being that fan to being in the other category, we'll call it the enemy idiot category, and you actually begin to start questioning your sanity, because they're also very good at lying, manipulating, and gaslighting. Now, gaslighting is where, you know, it's ultimately it's an attempt of one person to overwrite another person's reality. But really what it is these are the examples. It's someone saying, I never said that. You're imagining things. You're crazy. You're so emotional. You're not very good at that. You know, they kind of just overwriting your reality, like, well, that never happened. I don't know what you're talking about. That never happened. And you start feeling crazy. You start feeling like there's something, wow, like I can't believe, I just can't believe that actually happened. Did it actually happen? Is that the way I remembered it? You know, is my ex actually right? Did I make that all up? Or you're so angry because you know that is not what happened, and this person doesn't remember, and you have no evidence and you have no proof, and you feel so frustrated and so furious. So they're very good at, when you start moving into that enemy idiot category, at really excommunicating from you. You become persona non grata. You're not in the fan club anymore. And they start undermining you. And while you're being undermined, questioning your sanity and gaslighting is a very common strategy for a narcissist to just undermine you all the time. Again, make a note of this, because this is an important factor in negotiating with a narcissist, is knowing that they gaslight, knowing they will undermine your facts, they will undermine your reality, and they will question that you don't have a clue what you're talking about. Okay, that they never said that you're making things up, that you're imagining things, that you're crazy, that you're not a good parent. They start accusing you of all kinds of things. Okay. And in those moments, if you're feeling weak and you're feeling emotionally vulnerable, you might stop trusting yourself, your memory, your judgment, your intuition. This is very dangerous, because then they're winning. Okay, they've got you. Not only have you been excommunicated into this other camp, you're actually feeling excommunicated. You're feeling like that is a terrible thing and you're upset about it. You're walking on eggshells all the time. You're feeling very vulnerable. And you become people pleasing and just keep trying to return back to that first phase of the relationship, because the first phase was so amazing. So oh, I'm so sorry, can we still be friends? Because you're trying to fight to get back into being a fan, in the fan club, back in that place. You're trying to reason with them. You're trying to, if I just give them what they want, they'll be nice again. Okay, so you start that tactic. And ultimately, in a relationship like this, you're in what we call a drama triangle of domination and toxicity, where the persecutor is very much the narcissist. So they're ones that blame, they keep the people down, they're the bully. Okay. You've got the rescuer, which is, so you will swing between victim and rescuer. So victim is you're feeling powerless, you're just feeling like, I can't rise up against this person. But then when the narcissist is feeling down and they're feeling wounded, then you rush in and rescue them. So you're flip-flopping between rescuing them when they're feeling emotionally vulnerable, and then feeling like a victim when they're just being attacking and horrible. And they just hold this one position at all times, and it's very dominating and toxic. So what I'd like you to do is I want you to go through a little exercise. So I'm going to give you just a few minutes. I'm hoping you've been taking notes as we've been going, but take a few minutes to really look at your relationship with your ex and what traits can you identify from that list for your narcissistic ex. Where can you see, wow, this person, I didn't realize that was going on, and it's so happening. Okay. What was the negative impact on that relationship pattern on your life? So being in a relationship with someone like that, how has it impacted your life? And are you a people pleaser? Because most people who are married to narcissists are people pleasers. And if you fall in that camp, that's a real weakness that you need to work on. So I'm going to just time us. So we just take 2 minutes. So please begin now. You have 2 minutes to just go through and answer these questions. Okay? Okay, just 1 minute more. Okay, time's up. So I hope you could identify, some of those traits that I was mentioning as, being those of your ex that you're dealing with. And if you can relate to that, just say yes in the chat box so that we know that you can relate to that. Thank you. All right, let's move on. Now, in negotiating with a narcissist, so we have different programs where we zone in on, we diagnose who your ex is, and we zone in on that person, and we have different programs for how to deal with each type. So dealing with someone with borderline personality disorder is very different to dealing with a narcissist, very different to just dealing with someone who's just trying to be difficult, very different to dealing with someone who is completely psychotic. So, it is important to kind of work out what camp your ex is in so that you have slightly different strategies depending on who you're actually dealing with. So in negotiating with a narcissist, we have 15 key areas that you need to master. And it will be challenging for you because in being married to somebody like that, you were a fan for a very long time. It's impossible to be married to someone who's a narcissist and not be a fan for a really long time. So coming out of being a fan and actually not being a fan, not being an enemy either, being something in the middle, that is a really strategic and difficult and challenging thing to master. So do not, if you're finding it difficult to deal with your narcissistic ex, welcome to the club. It is challenging. And there are 15 things you need to really get good at to work out how to negotiate with someone like that. Now, I don't have time on this presentation to go through all 15, and also mastering the 15 is not, it's not really something you can just discuss in 20 minutes or 30 minutes. It's a journey that you go on because there's stages of development. It's like rungs of a ladder. You can only get really good at steps 11, 12, and 13 when you've mastered the first 10. So it's about going through a journey of transformation where you become a person that is not a fan, but not an enemy or an idiot. It's actually something really in the middle. And the narcissist doesn't quite know what to do with those people. They're a conundrum. And they see them as peers. And they're very, very few peers in a narcissist's world. Someone that they respect, someone that they look up to. And becoming that person is really the goal of negotiating with someone like this. So I'm going to go through 3 of the 15. It's kind of the beginning stages of negotiating with a narcissist. So the first thing, if you were in the camp, I can see some people are just commenting, yes, they were people pleasers. And it's funny, everybody's saying they were people pleasers. Yes, that is very common. Being married to a narcissist, being a fan, all you're trying to do is get back to that first stage of the relationship where you were intoxicated in love and happiness and all that stuff. So your people pleasing is completely part of that. So the number one thing you need to focus on, your foundational change you need to make in your life, is you have to practice self-care. And the kind of first part is you should never feel sorry for your narcissistic ex. So if you keep running back and keep trying to make them feel better and whatever, just remind yourself they're going to be fine. They always look out for their own interests. They're very good at finding people that can deliver the attention, empathy, and adulation that they need to survive in their life. So you feeling sorry for them, it's basically you getting sucked back in. That's kind of step 1. You should not do that, okay? Because that undermines you. You then get sucked back in until they push you away again, and you get pushed back into that camp of being an enemy idiot. And, you're cast out again. So if they're pulling you back in trying to get you to be a fan, and you're feeling bad for them, just remind yourself of this point, okay? You need to wake up as well from the facade. You need to wake up that love bomb kind of phase that you were in the beginning. It's not real. The beginning stage of your relationship was so intoxicating and amazing because, again, you were chosen by your ability to deliver attention, empathy, and adulation to your partner. since you stopped delivering the attention, empathy, and adulation that they feel they deserve and they need, things started changing in your relationship, and your relationship became toxic. Now, in a relationship where only one partner's needs are being met, it's only all the focus is on that person and their needs being met. Whatever intoxicating love drug you were on, the whole thing was a facade. You were actually in a toxic relationship where, although your needs were met maybe in the beginning as a byproduct, it was never the focus. You were never the focus of that relationship. You were just a byproduct, okay? And you've got to wake up from that fantasy world that you were in, that illusion, and to find the reality. Remind yourself of the negatives. Remind yourself that it wasn't a great relationship. So I can see it. Several people, they're still putting that narcissistic ex on a pedestal. Don't do that, because putting them on a pedestal is someone you can never get over, and you'll never find someone like them. It's because the intensity of how it started was so intoxicating. You're trying to get back there, but there's nothing normal and balanced about the intensity of that kind of relationship. You have to wake up from the facade so that you can move on. You need to reestablish your sense of self and your own boundaries. So that self-care is really important. Eating well, having good financial health, physical health, having clear boundaries, having your own space, not answering the phone every time the narcissist calls, not dealing with every text message, just having some space around you where you focus on your needs being met. If you're focusing solely on your children's needs being met, be careful. Because in that space, you're again in the people-pleasing category, and you're also hiding behind your children's needs. You're using your children's needs as an emotion avoidance tactic to dealing with yourself. So be careful when you're in that space where you're hiding behind someone else's needs, or you're busying yourself with work, or you're throwing yourself into volunteering, or you're helping somebody move home, and all that stuff is emotion avoidance tactics. What you need to do is slow down and take care of yourself. You need to go on a journey of discovery for yourself. Who am I? Who am I? What are my needs? Who is this person that I am, and how can I get my needs met in a relationship? And this is a journey, okay? So, in our programs, we take this self-care component very, very seriously. It's a real foundational part of the program. You also need to stop being so nice and trying to create this kind of win-win thing. Any argument with a narcissist is going to get ugly. And to put yourself in the category where you're not someone who's a fan, but you're also not someone who's an enemy, trying to be something in the middle, you actually need to wake up. This is a game, and you need to learn to play the game. And being kind and nice and a pushover, to just keep the peace, get this win-win, that is just going to get you hurt. You're not actually going to get, what you desire at the end of the day. So again, I want you to just take 2 minutes and just do this exercise, where I want you to take a look at, are you guilty of putting everyone first before yourself? And particularly think of your children. Are you putting your children in front of everything? Are you hiding behind their needs? And what are some of the self-care actions you can put in place in the next week? So I want you to take a look. Where can you take better care of just yourself? Remember, like when you're in an airplane and the cabin pressure decompresses, they always say you put the oxygen mask on yourself before you help other people. This is what this is about. You need to take care of yourself before you can help others. So take a look at this exercise. I'm going to give you 2 minutes to do this and just take some notes. we just have some questions about what kind of actions you can take in the next week. So it's things like taking care of your health, your well-being. If you haven't been getting some exercise, get some exercise. Start putting that into the regular routine. Start eating better, eating healthier, taking care of yourself. Stop over-organizing yourself and doing things for other people. You need some nights off where you just take some time doing something you really enjoy. Prioritize kind of dates with yourself, time with yourself. That is the alarm, all finished. So, think about things you can do for yourself that feel nice for you. I don't know, maybe a massage, maybe just taking time reading a book, doing something you'd really like to enjoy.
I'm just going to, not so much interrupt, but add to that as well. I mean, I know from other presentations we've given, we talk a lot about people taking actions to kind of get themselves grounded. And it seems to me this is a very similar thing. So it's about, it's not necessarily an extravagant action. It's about, as you say, self-care, be it a massage or eating well or taking some exercise. It can be something relatively small, but it's just like a positive action. Is that sort of fair?
Brilliant. Yeah, totally. It's exactly that.
Great.
Thanks, Simon. Okay. All right. So make sure that you've got those actions in place and really make sure you take those actions in the next week. Let's move on. The next part is you need to prepare. You need to prepare for this negotiation. This is negotiating with someone who is a narcissist is going to be one of the most important negotiations you will ever prepare for, particularly if you're trying to settle on dissolving a marriage and divorcing. You need to be really on your A game. I have seen some of the most catastrophic settlement situations where people lose custody and all sorts of terrible things happen is when they're negotiating with a narcissist and they're trying to just get it over with too quickly, or they just trying to fold and just trying to please them or trying to be a fan, or they're not smart about it. So you really need to prepare and understand your opponent. So you've got to learn these key principles of divorcing a narcissist. You need to know they're in it to win it. Okay, they don't lose. They just don't. And if they do lose, they'll frame it like they won anyway. So they're going to focus on winning, and they will win at all costs. Where a lot of people are divorcing and they're focusing on putting the thing behind them as quickly as possible. A narcissist doesn't care. They can just go on and on and on forever and continue fighting. They're going to be super charming and they're going to occur super reasonable, meaning when they have their day in court, they will be charismatic and amazing, and they will you'll feel threatened. You'll feel, oh my gosh, they're going to win everyone over because everybody just is so under their spell all the time. They will lie and misrepresent things. Remember, they're in it to win it. They will do whatever it takes to win. They're going to hide money. They're going to make you look crazy. They're going to make you look like a bad parent. They're going to act in bad faith. They will try and maintain the edge. They're apt to file endless motions, make empty false accusations about neglectful parenting, or you've mismanaged funds, or everything that they do is in an attempt to wear you down. Okay? I had one situation where the guy just wouldn't stop. He went back to court 15, 16 times for small things just to get in the way of his ex-wife that he was divorcing. And it was like a game to him. And the way that one of his messages he wrote is that I will destroy you and I will not stop until you're destroyed. So they can be very tumultuous people to deal with. They don't care if children get hurt in the process. They lack that empathy. Remember, if they lose their audience and they realize that you're not a fan, or they even realize that their children are not fans anymore, they become collateral damage. They only care about winning. If the children turn on the narcissist, they also become an enemy. But you will get blamed for turning them. Okay, so it's a really delicate thing. So sometimes, in some cases, the narcissist just moves on and they don't care and they just disappear from your life. In some cases, that's almost a best case scenario, because not having to deal with that person is good. But the impact on your children will be a disaster, because growing up without a mother or a father, because that person has just disappeared, because the child is no longer a fan, so they just no longer important. It's very painful. Again, you need to know how to tackle that and deal with that. So you've got to understand your opponent. They're also going to take lots of time with this battle. And what you need to know is the one that can hang in there the longest wins. So you need to become more resilient, tougher, so that you can work with someone like this. Really understand who this person is. Really get over them, that they no longer have a hold over you and power over you, so that you can master this negotiation. You need to get ahead of that game, as I said. So they're going to act in bad faith. Just expect it. The likelihood is that you've ended up in court because of his or her refusal to discuss terms on any reasonable basis. These people don't attend mediation. They want their day in court. They will be obstructive. They cannot collaborate because they cannot control the narrative in a collaboration or mediation attempt. Because mediation is really, it's about two adults negotiating like adults for a reasonable adult kind of deal. A narcissist cannot do that. They cannot do anything where they're not winning. Everything has to feel like they're winning. They've got something. They want their day in court. They will refuse to negotiate. They will run up the bills, and they will go back to court again and again and again. So the critical part here is to understand the narcissist has to win. They have to win. So how can you become someone smart that gets ahead of that? How can you make it a win for the narcissist? Okay. So you've got to practice what we call in the preparation is understanding and expecting what they're going to do. And you need to learn to play chess. Okay. Now the grandmasters, when they're playing chess in a tournament, there's a great interview, a really good documentary actually on how they win chess tournaments. And what they do is in the beginning, sometimes they concede some pieces, because they're trying to see how does their opponent think, how does their opponent work. They want to see how their brain is ticking on, and they'll concede some pieces up front so that they can work on their strategy to win the overall game. It's the same thing when you're negotiating with a narcissist. You need to be willing to concede some pieces so that you can win the overall game. So get really clear on what is the overall game you want to win. What is your real intention? Because what happens is you can get so quickly sucked into all the pieces that are on the board, all the little topics, the little wins, the little dramas. Oh, everything is the drama, and every fight is a fight to the death. Sometimes letting those go so that you win the overall game is a more strategic approach. Okay, so you've got to play that game, really understand how does your opponent think, and how can you win that overall game? So some tips are, they need a trophy. They need to win. They need to have some kind of symbolic I won thing. It's really, really critical. They will not stop until they feel they've got that. And understanding that they need that means if you can supply a trophy, a kind of token something that is big enough for them to feel, I won this, I got him, I got her, I showed them, you will actually be on a good track to get what you really want, which is the overall game. So focus on that end game and concede some pieces up front. Now, this is very specific. It's when we work on our programs, we're working specifically in your scenario, trying to figure out what would be a trophy that you can concede so that you can win the end game. And it's often something that's really bizarre. It's like something that they want that was special to you, and you give it to them, and then they'll let everything else go, but they won. So we've got to get them to feel like they've won. So I want you to think about just quietly, like, what is it that they want? What is this trophy that you can give them so that you can win the overall game? Now, a trophy is not the children. Children are never a trophy. So you've got to think of something else, because the end game is always to have the children feel balanced and harmonized and complete, and kind of they've got two parents and all that. We want to make sure they're okay. don't put them on the table as a trophy. There's something else that you can concede to get what you really want when you're negotiating with a narcissist. Okay? So what we've had discussed so far, again, I want you to just take a couple of minutes and just look at what actions can you take differently in approaching your divorce. Okay, so just take 2 minutes to kind of take a look. What is it that you can do already that you can see is slightly different? Can you start thinking of what that trophy can be? Can you understand that the opponent, they have to win? Can you understand that they need attention, adulation, and empathy? And how can you give that to them strategically to kind of win them over to get what you want? How can you use their weakness against them? I want you to start thinking of those scenarios and just take, just 2 or 3 actions you can take differently in the next week. Okay, time's up. All right, let's keep going. So I've given you 3 kind of things to think about of the 15 things you need to master. Now, if we're talking about how to actually thrive in divorcing and co-parenting with a narcissistic ex, the secret is that it's got to be very specific to you. There is actually no shortcut because every scenario is different. Every flavor of narcissist is a little bit different. Okay, some narcissists, they will string out court battles and fight to keep the children for 3 years. And other narcissists, all they want to do is be done with them and just get away from that and go and find new fans, a new club where they're adored and getting their empathy and their attention. So it's got to be really specific to you and your scenario. So what you need in your life is to find yourself an angel, someone who can walk you through that journey. And it might be a friend, it could be somebody that you really respect who has their life and their relationships together that can walk you through that journey and those steps and help you figure out how to not be a fan, how to not be an enemy or an idiot, how to be something in the middle, something that a narcissist can respect and relate to. Now, in negotiating with a narcissist, as I said, there are 15 key things you need to master. And in the people that we've supported to really master that kind of negotiation and, come out better on the other time, it's actually a transformation in yourself. To become somebody who can negotiate with anyone who has a volatile personality, you actually transform yourself into someone who's really powerful. You're able to deal with people, difficult people better in the workplace, better in life, better when you're trying to buy a property, when you're negotiating for a new car, with everything. No one can get the edge on you because you understand human beings, you understand how they tick. You actually become a master negotiator. So if you see this as an opportunity, this situation that you're in, which isn't great, as a real opportunity to transform yourself into the kind of person that you really want to become, that's the key and that is the secret.